Assalamu alaikum everyone. Peace and Allah's mercy and blessings be upon you. Inshallah today we have a new story. قصة اليوم اسمها Stormalong. Stormalong. And of course before we start قبل لا نبدأ عندنا vocabulary. Okay, so we will start with the vocabulary. First one is seafaring. Seafaring. Seafaring is something related to the sea life. Okay, sea life يعني حياة البحارة. Both of Jen's parents are sailors. Her seafaring childhood was exciting. والدة جين كلاهما كانا بحارين. Her seafaring childhood يعني طفولتها أو حياة طفولتها كلها كانت مليانة حماس. Then we have tidals. You can see tidal اللي هو a huge wave اللي هي موجة كبيرة. Okay, tidal. مثال: An earthquake in the ocean caused a great tidal wave. يعني بسبب الزلزال earthquake اضطرب بالبحر فتسبب بموجة كبيرة جدا. Tidal wave. Then we have foaming. foaming جاية من كلمة foam. عارفين الفوم لما تكون على وجه القهوة at the top of the coffee. So foaming اللي هو إيش؟ الرغوة. foaming waves الموجات الرغوية crashed against the seawall يعني ضربت في الجدار البحري. Okay, spreading mist into the air. المست اللي هو زي شيء زي غشاء، زي سوت غشاء أو غطت. Okay, so outcast. The lonely girl felt an outcast. طبعا outcast زي في الصورة شخص يعني يشعر بالوحدة. Okay, in her new town في بلدتها الجديدة حاسة كأنها وحيدة لوحدها أو ما في أحد يعرف. She did not know anyone يعني هي ما بتعرف أي حد. So she felt okay or she felt like an outcast. طيب yearning. yearning يعني يشعر بالشوق. Okay, يتوق لشخص أو لمكان. Okay, missing someone or a place. After traveling for months, Danielle felt a yearning to be home. يعني بعد السفر لشهور عديدة دانيال حس أو شعر بالاشتياق لوطنه. Memorable جدا كلمة حلوة. memorable اللي هو ليبقى في الذاكرة أو لنستذكره أو للذكرى. The vacation was very memorable يعني كانت لتعلق في الذاكرة. She will never forget it. ما حتنساها أبدا. betrayed زي لما شخص يخذلنا أو شخص يعني ما توقعنا منه سوء المعاملة أو الخذلان أو letting us down. تمام. So if someone betrayed you he or she let you down يعني من معنى الخذلان، شخص خذلك بتصرف سيء سواه. اوكي طيب condition. Abe has a fever. condition بمعنى حالة لكن هون بمعنى حالة الشخص. اوكي Abe has a fever عنده Abe حمى. in his condition يعني في حالته هو he should be resting لازم يرتاح. shortage يعني يعني زي شح في أو نقص في المخزون. There are long lines for gas يعني في طوابير كتير من الناس اللي بتعبي بترول. ليه؟ because of the gas shortage لأنه في نقص في البترول. أوكي في نقص ففي طلب كتير عليه. horrified زي ما بنعرف جاي من كلمة horror رعب. أوكي horrified مرعوب خائف. He was horrified كان خائف when he accidentally أو مرعوب أو يعني شعر بالذعر when he accidentally. شوفي accidentally جدا حلوة يعني بدون قصد يعني بغير عمد dropped his plate of food لما طيح صحن الأكل. okay dropped his plate of food. It talks about a giant man who likes the sea life. okay who likes to be a sailor. you see this is Stormalong. طيب let's start. بسم الله. One day in the early 80s a tidal wave crashed down on the shores. طب before we start لما حنمر على كلمة من الكلمات الفكاب شوية نفصل فيها أو نشرح المعنى للجملة. في يوم من الأيام في 1800 جت موجة ضخمة جدا وضربت في الشواطئ. شواطئ وين؟ shores of Cape Cod in New England. After the wave had washed back out of the sea, the villagers heard deep bellowing sounds coming from the beach. When they rushed to find out what was going on, they couldn't believe their eyes. A giant baby 3 fathoms tall or 18 feet, crying in a voice as loud as a foghorn. The villagers put the baby in a big wheelbarrow and carried him to town. They took him to the meeting house and fed him barrels and barrels of milk. As 10 people patted the baby on the back, the minister said, "What will we name him?" "How about Alfred Bultup Stormalong?" a little boy piped up. "And call him Stormy for short?" The baby smiled at the boy. "Stormy it is," everyone cried. As he grew older, Stormy was the main attraction of Cape Cod. He did not care for all the attention. However, it reminded him that he was different from everyone else. After school, he always tried to slip away to the sea. He liked to swim out into the deep water and ride the whales and porpoises. Stormy's love for the ocean was so strong that folks used to say he had salt water in his veins. By the time Stormy was 12, he was already 6 fathoms tall, or 36 feet. "I guess you're going to have to go out into the world now," his friend said sadly. "The truth is, you've grown too big for this town. You can't fit in the schoolhouse, and you're too tall to work in a store. Maybe you should go to Boston. It's a lot bigger than Cape Cod." Stormy felt like an outcast as he packed his trunk, hoisted it over his shoulder, and started away. Okay, so we have outcast. Stormy felt يعني حس ستورمي بأنه شخص منبوذ، شخص وحيد في هذا العالم أو في هذه البلدة. As he packed his trunk يعني حمل الأمتعة حقته. Okay, hoisted يعني رفعها. hoisted it over his shoulder. رفعها أو جرها أو حطها على كتفه. And started away. And when he arrived in Boston, he discovered something that made him even sadder. Although the city had more buildings than Cape Cod, they were just as small. Worse than that, his huge size and foghorn voice scared the daylights out of everyone he met. "A sailor's life is the only one for me," he said, staring longingly at Boston Harbor. "The sea's my best friend." It strode toward the biggest Yankee clipper docked in the harbor, the Lady of the Sea. "Blow me down," said the captain when Stormy stood before him. "I've never seen a man as big as you before." "I'm not a man," said Stormy. "I'm 12 years old." "Blow me down again," said the captain. "I guess you will have to be the biggest cabin boy in the world then. Welcome aboard, son." The sailors were a bit shocked when the captain introduced the 36-foot giant as their new cabin boy. But the day soon came when all the sailors of the Lady of the Sea completely accepted Stormy's awesome size. It happened one morning when the clipper was anchored off the coast of South America. "Hoist the anchor!" the captain shouted after a few hours of deep-sea fishing. But when the crew pulled on the great chain, nothing happened. The sailors heaved and hoed and still could not move the anchor off the bottom of the ocean. "Let me take care of it," Stormy boomed. Then the cabin boy climbed onto the bowsprit and dived into the sea. After Stormy disappeared, terrible sounds came from the water. The ship began pitching and tossing on wild, foaming waves. It seemed that all aboard were about to be hurled into a wet grave. Okay, let's stop on foaming. So the ship began pitching and tossing on wild. So pitching يعني زي صارت في أكتر من اتجاه. tossing زي كأنها بتنسحب أو بتنقلب على الاتجاه التاني. on wild يعني كانت عنيفة جدا، يعني حركاتها عنيفة جدا. foaming wave كونت من هذا كله قاعد بيصير موجات رغوية. It seemed that all aboard were about to be hurled into a wet grave when suddenly the sea grew calm again and Stormy bobbed to the surface. Hand over hand he climbed an anchor chain, nearly pulling the ship onto her side with his great weight. As soon as he was safely aboard, he yanked up the anchor, and once again the Lady of the Sea began to glide through the ocean. What happened? Cried the crew. Just a little fight with a 2-ton octopus, said Stormy. Octopus? Aye, he did not want to let go of our anchor. What did you do to him? The others cried. Wrestled 8 slimy tentacles into double knots. It'll take a month, Sundays for him to untie himself. From then on, Stormy was the most popular sailor on board. Over the next few years, reputation spread too, until all the Yankee Clipper crews wanted him to sail with them. But Stormy still wasn't happy. Partly it was because no ship, not even the Lady of the Sea, was big enough for him. She would nearly tip over when he stood close to her rail. All her wood peeled off when he scrubbed her decks, and giant waves rolled over her sides when he sang a sea shanty. Worst of all, Stormy was still lonely. The Clipper's hammocks were so small that at night he had to sleep by himself in a rowboat. As he listened to the other sailors singing and having a good time, he felt as if his best friend, the sea, had betrayed him. Maybe it was time for the giant sailor to move on. One day, when the Lady of the Sea dropped anchor in Boston, Stormy announced to his friends that he decided to give up his seafaring life. I'm going to put on an R over my shoulder and head west, he said. I hear there is room enough for my kind of folks out there, even ones as big as me. I'm going to walk till the first person asks me, Hey, mister, what's that funny thing you got on your shoulder there? Then I'll know I'm far enough away from the sea, and I won't ever think about her again. Stormy walked through the cities of Providence and New York. He walked through the Pine Barrens of New Jersey and the woods of Pennsylvania. He crossed the Allegheny Mountains and floated on flatboats down on the Ohio River. Pioneers often invited Stormy to share their dinner, but these occasions only made him homesick, for folks always guessed he was a sailor and asked him questions about the sea. It wasn't until Stormy came to the plains of Kansas that a farmer said, Hey, mister, what's that funny thing you got on your shoulder? You asked the right question, mate, said Stormy. I'm going to settle down on this spot and dig me some potatoes. And that's just what Stormy did. Soon he became the best farmer around. He planted over 5 million potatoes and watered his whole crop with the sweat of his brow. But all the time, Stormy was watering, hoeing, picking, and planting. He knew he still had not found a home. He was too big to go square dancing in the dance hall. He was too big to visit other farmhouses. Too big for the meeting house. Too big for the general store. And he felt a great yearning for the sea. Okay, let's get back to the word yearning. As we said, yearning means to miss someone or to miss a place. So he felt a homesick for the sea. حنين إلى الوطن أو حنين إلى المكان أو حنين إلى البحر. He missed the fishy smelling breezes and salt spray. Never in the Bararies did a giant wave knock him to his knees. Never did a hurricane whirl him across the earth. How could he ever test his true strength and courage? One day, several years after Stormy's disappearance, the sailors of Boston Harbor saw a giant coming down to the wharf, waving his oar above his head. As he approached, they began to whoop with joy. Stormy was back, but as happy as they were to see him, they were horrified when they discovered how bad he looked, how was all stooped over. His face was like a withered cornstalk, and there were pale bags under his eyes. After word spread about Stormy's condition, okay, let's stop a little bit here about condition. So, condition means how you look like or how your health is, your physical health here. So, after word spread about Stormy's physical health, thousands of sailors met to talk about the problem. "We've got to keep him with us this time," one said. "There is only one way to do it," said another. "Build a ship that's big enough." "Ay," the others agreed. "We can't be having him trail behind us at night in his own rowboat." So the New England sailors set about building the biggest clipper ship in the world. Her sails had to be cut and sewn in the Mojave Desert. And after she was built, there was a lumber shortage all over America. It took over 40 seamen to manage her pilot's wheel, unless, of course, the captain happened to be Alfred Baltop Stormalong, who would whirl the ship's wheel with his baby finger. Stormalong named the clipper the Courser on her maiden voyage. He clutched the cursor wheel and steered her out of Boston Harbor. As he soared over the billowing waves, his cheeks glowed with sunburn, his hair sparkled with ocean spray, and the salt water began coursing through his veins again.